The hum of the refrigerator was the loudest sound in the house. It always seemed louder late at night, after Laura had gone to bed and the television was off. I was sitting at the kitchen island, nursing a glass of water, staring at the screen of her tablet she'd left behind. Usually, I wouldn't even glance at it. Privacy was something we'd always respected, even after 15 years together. But tonight, it had lit up with a notification, face up on the granite countertop where she'd forgotten it. A preview of a message. Just a few words, but they were enough. Tonight was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. It wasn't the words themselves that hit me first. It was the sender's name. Not a name I recognized, just initials, J.M. My heart didn't sink. It seized like a fist clenching tight in my chest. I picked up the tablet. It wasn't locked. Laura rarely bothered with passcodes at home. Too much hassle, she'd say. I tapped the message icon. My hand felt steady, strangely detached from the tremor starting somewhere deep inside me. The conversation thread opened. It wasn't long, just exchanges from the past few days, but it was devastatingly clear. Plans made, compliments exchanged, thinly veiled references to meetings that had nothing to do with her work at the marketing firm. Phrases like "same place" and "he'll be working late again" jumped out, each one a small, sharp blow. Tonight's message from J.M. was the latest. Below it, Laura's reply, sent just before she came upstairs. "Me neither. You make me feel alive." Alive. The word echoed in the quiet kitchen. 15 years, 2 kids asleep upstairs, a house we'd built together, literally. I'd designed it, we'd overseen the construction, and she felt alive with someone else. I closed the tablet, the screen going dark, but the words were burned into my mind. I felt cold, a chill spreading from my core outwards, despite the mild spring night. I stood up and walked to the sink, rinsing my glass with mechanical precision. My reflection in the dark window above the sink looked back at me, a stranger with tired eyes and lines around his mouth I hadn't noticed before. Mark, 48 years old, architect, husband, father, and now a fool. The refrigerator hummed again, kicking into a cycle. I thought about waking her, confronting her right then and there. Imagined the scene, the shouting, the denials, the inevitable, ugly tears. But the thought exhausted me before it even fully formed. What would it achieve? The evidence was right there, glowing silently on the kitchen island. I walked through the darkened living room. Family photos lined the mantelpiece. Us smiling on beaches, at birthday parties, the kids growing year by year. It felt like looking at scenes from someone else's life. Had it all been a lie? How long had this been going on? The messages only showed a few days, but the ease, the familiarity in their tone suggested something more established. Weeks? Months? Upstairs, I paused outside our bedroom door. I could hear her soft, even breathing. My wife, Laura, the woman I'd loved since I was barely out of college, the woman I'd built my entire world around, sleeping peacefully while the life we'd shared lay in ruins downstairs on the kitchen counter. I couldn't go in there, not tonight. The guest room felt anonymous, cold, but it was the only place I could breathe. I sat on the edge of the bed, the floral duvet cover scratchy against my trousers. The silence here was different from the kitchen, thinner, emptier. My mind raced, replaying conversations, looking for signs I'd missed. Her working late more often, the sudden weekend conferences she'd started attending, The way she sometimes seemed distant, lost in thought, even when I was talking to her. I'd attributed it all to stress, to her demanding job. We'd both been busy, focused on careers, on raising the kids. Maybe I hadn't paid enough attention. Maybe I hadn't made her feel alive. The thought brought a fresh wave of nausea. Was this somehow my fault? No. The cold certainty that settled over me was absolute. Busy schedules didn't excuse betrayal. Stress didn't justify sneaking around. This wasn't about me not paying attention. This was about her choices, her lies. I lay back on the unfamiliar pillows, staring at the ceiling. Sleep was impossible. Every shadow in the room seemed to twist into shapes of doubt and anger. The initials J.M. kept flashing in my mind. Who was he? Someone from work? Someone I knew? The possibilities were endless, each one adding another layer to the suffocating weight on my chest. The image of her message, "You make me feel alive," returned, sharp and painful. What did that make me? The man who made her feel, what? Numb? Trapped? Dead? I closed my eyes, but the questions kept coming, circling like vultures. How could she do this? How could the woman I trusted implicitly, the bedrock of my life, be capable of such profound deception? The house was silent again, except for the low hum that seemed to follow me, the sound of a life quietly, irrevocably breaking apart. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, what I would say, what I would do. All I knew was the cold, hard knot in my stomach and the crushing realization that nothing would ever be the same again. The foundation I'd built my life on had just crumbled beneath my feet, and I was standing alone in the wreckage. The first gray light of dawn filtered through the guest room blinds, striping the unfamiliar walls. I hadn't slept, not really, just drifted in and out of a state of tense awareness, the same thoughts playing on a loop. The tablet sat downstairs like an unexploded bomb. Every creak of the house sounded unnaturally loud, signaling the start of a day I didn't want to face. I heard the floorboards sigh upstairs. The kids. Soon, the familiar sounds of their morning routine drifted down. Muffled thumps, the distant flush of a toilet, sleepy arguments over toothpaste. Usually those sounds were the comforting backdrop to my morning coffee. Today, they felt like a shield, the only thing holding back the storm that was brewing inside me. Then I heard her. Laura's footsteps, lighter, quicker, moving down the hallway towards the stairs. My breath caught. I stayed perfectly still, listening as she descended, her steps pausing briefly, perhaps near the kitchen island. Did she notice the tablet wasn't where she left it last night before heading up? Or did she just grab it without thinking? I pictured her picking it up, seeing the read messages, the realization dawning on her face. Or maybe she wouldn't notice. Maybe she was too caught up in thoughts of J.M. James? Could it be James? The name felt generic, common, yet specific enough to make my stomach clench. James from her office? James, their neighbor from 3 streets over? The smell of coffee began to drift up the stairs, her morning ritual, unchanged, as if nothing had happened, as if the words, "You make me feel alive," hadn't shattered the foundation of our lives just hours before. The sheer normalcy of it felt like a fresh betrayal. I forced myself to move, showered mechanically, dressed in clothes that felt stiff and unfamiliar. Looking in the bathroom mirror, I saw the strain, dark circles under my eyes, a tightness around my jaw. I practiced a neutral expression, trying to smooth out the anger, the hurt. I couldn't let the kids see. Not yet. Maybe not ever, if I could help it. What would this do to them? Walking downstairs felt like wading through thick mud. Laura was in the kitchen, humming softly as she poured orange juice for the kids, who were now chattering at the breakfast table. She looked normal, untroubled. Her blonde hair was pulled back neatly, a touch of makeup brightening her face. She glanced up as I entered, offering a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Morning," she said, her voice even, maybe a fraction too bright. "Sleep okay in the guest room? Your snoring was shaking the walls last night." She gave a little laugh, a practiced deflection. My snoring. That was her explanation for my absence. Easy, convenient, untrue. I hadn't snored. I hadn't slept. "Fine," I managed, my voice flatter than I intended. I poured myself coffee, my hand shaking slightly as I lifted the pot. Did she notice? Her back was to me as she buttered toast. "Dad, can you drive me to Maya's after school today? We have a project," my daughter Chloe asked, oblivious. "Sure, honey," I said, focusing on her, grateful for the distraction. "Are you okay, Dad? You look tired," my son Ben piped up, always more observant. Laura turned then, her gaze sharp for a second, assessing me. "Dad had a late night working," she interjected smoothly, placing toast on his plate. "Didn't you, Mark?" The question hung there. A test? An invitation? A warning? I met her eyes across the kitchen, just for a second. Was that fear flickering behind the calm facade? Or was I projecting my own turmoil onto her? "Something like that," I mumbled, turning back to my coffee. I couldn't hold her gaze, not without giving everything away. Breakfast was excruciating. The kids' normal chatter felt alien. Laura kept up a stream of light conversation, school events, weekend plans, office anecdotes, carefully avoiding anything too personal, anything that might require a real answer from me. She moved around the kitchen with practiced ease, but I saw it now. The way her fingers tightened slightly on her coffee mug when Ben asked if her late meeting went well last night. The almost imperceptible glance towards her phone resting on the counter beside the fruit bowl. She mentioned a name. Eleanor, a colleague. Said Eleanor was having a tough time, needed support. Was Eleanor real? Or was she a cover? My mind instantly snagged on the name, comparing it to the approved list. Yes, Eleanor was there. But was she JM's confidant? Or just another piece of the fabricated narrative Laura was weaving? Every detail she offered now felt suspect, potentially part of the intricate web of lies I was just beginning to uncover. After the kids left for the bus, the silence descended again, heavier this time. Laura started clearing the table, her movements efficient, avoiding my eyes. The tablet lay on the far end of the counter, untouched since she'd apparently retrieved it earlier. Had she checked it? Did she know I knew? Or was she blissfully, carelessly unaware? "I should head into the office," I said, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the house, of her presence. "Oh, I thought you were working from home today." She looked up, a flicker of surprise, or was it apprehension? "Change my mind. Need the focus." It wasn't entirely a lie. I needed to think, and I couldn't do it here, watching her pretend that our world wasn't tilting on its axis. "Okay," she said, turning back to the sink. "Have a good day. Have a good day." The casual phrase, one we'd exchanged thousands of times, now sounded absurd. I walked out, grabbing my briefcase, not looking back. The drive to the office was a blur. Horns honked, lights changed, but I barely registered any of it. My mind was a whirlwind of betrayal, anger, and a profound, aching sadness. The image of her face, smiling calmly while discussing weekend plans as if she hadn't spent the previous night with another man, kept replaying. Who was she? How could I have lived beside her for 15 years and not seen this? Or had I seen it subconsciously and chosen to ignore the signs because acknowledging them was too painful? The questions offered no comfort, only more confusion. At the office, I stared blankly at blueprints on my screen. Lines and angles that usually made sense, that represented order and structure, seemed meaningless. My carefully constructed world felt like one of my designs suddenly revealed to have faulty foundations, ready to collapse at any moment. I couldn't concentrate. Every phone notification made me jump. Every time a colleague walked past my door, I imagined it was someone bringing more bad news. I thought about James again, tried to picture him. Was he charming, wealthy, younger? What did he give her that I didn't? The need to know was a physical ache, but tangled with it was the dread of what I might find out. Knowing the who wouldn't change the what. She had betrayed me. She had chosen to deceive me repeatedly. I pulled up Laura's social media profile online, something I rarely did. Scrolled through photos, looking for clues. Group shots from work events, dinners with friends I supposedly knew. Was he there, hiding in plain sight? A face in the background I hadn't paid attention to. There was a James pictured in a few photos from a company retreat months ago. Tall, conventionally handsome, smiling easily next to Laura. Was it him? The caption just listed first names. It could be anyone. It didn't matter. Or maybe it did. The afternoon dragged on. I exchanged emails, made a few calls, went through the motions of a normal workday, but my mind was elsewhere, trapped in the kitchen, staring at that tablet screen. The anger had solidified into something colder, harder. A resolve was forming, though its shape was still unclear. Confrontation felt inevitable, but not yet. Not until I understood more. Not until I was ready. Leaving the office felt like stepping back into the war zone. The drive home was filled with a different kind of tension, anticipation. What would I find? Would she be there, acting normally? Would she have realized I knew? Would J.M. James have contacted her again? I pulled into the driveway. The house looked the same as always. Solid, welcoming. Lights glowed in the windows. Smoke curled from the chimney. She must have started a fire. A cozy domestic scene that felt utterly false. I took a deep breath before getting out of the car, steeling myself. Inside, the kids were doing homework at the kitchen table. The smell of roasting chicken filled the air. Laura stood by the stove, stirring something in a pot. She turned as I walked in, a tentative smile on her face. "Hi," she said softly. "Rough day?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. I walked past her, heading towards the stairs to put my briefcase away. As I passed the counter, I glanced at her phone. It was screened down, deliberately placed that way. My heart hammered against my ribs. She knew. She must know. I continued upstairs, my steps heavy. The guest room door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. The bed was neatly made, the pillows fluffed, as if I'd never spent a sleepless night there. as if everything was back to normal. But it wasn't. It was just hidden better now. I stood in the hallway, listening to the sounds downstairs, the clatter of pans, the kids' voices, Laura humming that same tune from the morning. A fragile veneer of normalcy stretched thin over a chasm of deceit. The anger surged again, hot and sharp. I wanted to storm down there, throw the tablet on the table, demand answers, watch her carefully constructed world shatter. But the image of the kids' faces stopped me, their innocent chatter. This wasn't just about me and her anymore. It was about them. How could I protect them from this? I walked towards our bedroom, the room I hadn't been able to enter last night, pushed the door open slowly. Everything looked the same. Her clothes draped over a chair, a book open on her nightstand. My side of the bed was undisturbed. I walked over to the window, looking out at the darkening yard. The lights from the kitchen cast a warm glow on the lawn. It looked so peaceful from up here, so intact. My gaze fell on her jewelry box, open on the dresser. A necklace lay coiled inside, one I didn't recognize. Delicate gold chain, small pendant, new. When had she gotten that? A gift? From him? From James? I reached out, my fingers hovering over the cool metal. The urge to pick it up, to examine it, to find some clue was strong. But I pulled my hand back. It wouldn't change anything. The betrayal wasn't in the necklace. It was in the secrecy, in the lies that allowed it to be there without my knowledge. I turned away from the dresser, away from the window. The weight in my chest felt heavier than ever, a physical pressure that made it hard to breathe. Downstairs, I heard Laura call my name, asking if I wanted a drink before dinner. Her voice, so familiar, so normal. How long could we keep this up? This silent, agonizing play? Days? Weeks? How long until it all exploded? The uncertainty was a different kind of torture. I stood there, frozen in the middle of the room that was ours, yet felt alien. My mind raced, trying to piece together a plan, any plan. But all I felt was the cold, hard reality settling in. The woman I loved was a stranger. Our life was a lie, and I was trapped inside it, suffocating slowly. The foundation wasn't just cracked. It felt like it had turned to dust beneath my feet. Dinner was a performance. I played the part of the attentive father, asking Chloe about her project with Maya, listening to Ben's detailed explanation of a video game strategy. Laura played the devoted mother, laughing at the right moments, refilling juice glasses, keeping the conversation flowing smoothly over the terrain of our fractured reality. But underneath the surface, the air crackled. We avoided direct eye contact. When our hands brushed, as we both reached for the salt, we recoiled as if burned. The kids seemed oblivious, wrapped up in their own worlds. Or perhaps they sensed the tension but didn't know how to name it, attributing the strained silence between their parents to ordinary adult preoccupation. I hoped it was the latter. The thought of their innocence being collateral damage in this mess was unbearable. After dinner, the kids retreated upstairs to finish homework and prepare for bed. Laura began clearing the table, her movements still efficient, but now tinged with a visible nervousness. She dropped a fork, and it clattered loudly on the tile floor, making her jump. "Leave it," I said, my voice quieter than I expected. "I'll get it." She straightened up quickly. "No, it's fine. I've got it." She bent down, retrieving the fork, her face momentarily hidden from view. When she stood up, her cheeks were slightly flushed. We moved around the kitchen in a strained silence, loading the dishwasher, wiping counters. The mundane tasks felt absurd, like tidying a house while it was on fire. The tablet still sat on the far end of the counter, untouched, a silent accusation. "Do you want to watch something?" Laura asked, finally breaking the silence as we finished cleaning up. Her voice was carefully casual. "There's that new series everyone's talking about." "No," I said, "not tonight." She hesitated, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Okay. Well, I might read for a bit." She drifted towards the living room, avoiding my gaze. I stayed in the kitchen for a few more minutes, staring out the window into the dark backyard. The resolve that had been hardening all day finally solidified. I couldn't live like this. I couldn't breathe in this house filled with unspoken lies. I needed the truth, however ugly it might be. I walked over to the counter and picked up the tablet. It felt heavy in my hand, heavier than its physical weight. I carried it into the living room. Laura was curled up on the sofa, pretending to read a magazine, though I could see she wasn't turning the pages. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting flickering shadows across the room. I didn't sit down. I stood in front of the coffee table, placing the tablet squarely in the center, the screen facing her. She looked up, her eyes widening slightly as she saw it. Her hand tightened on the edge of her magazine. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking pale and suddenly fragile under the warm lamplight. She knew. There was no doubt now. She knew what I had seen. Her lips parted slightly, as if to speak, but no sound came out. Her gaze darted from the tablet to my face, searching, perhaps, for an escape route, a way to deny, to deflect, to manage the situation as she had managed everything else. I met her eyes, holding her gaze steady. The anger was there, cold and deep, but overlaying it was a profound sense of finality. The performance was over. "Laura," I said, my voice low but clear, cutting through the strained silence. "Who is Jam?" Her breath hitched. She stared at me, her eyes filled with a dawning terror. The carefully constructed facade crumbled, leaving behind raw panic. The air felt thick, unbreathable. The moment stretched, suspended between the life we had and whatever came next. There was no going back from this. Laura stared at the tablet, then back at me, her face a mask of disbelief, transforming into pure, unadulterated fear. She shook her head slightly, a tiny, involuntary movement. "Mark, it's not what you think." The classic line, the first refuge of the guilty. It landed with a dull thud in the quiet room. "Isn't it?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "Then what is it, Laura? Explain it to me. Explain tonight was incredible. Explain you make me feel alive." She flinched at her own words thrown back at her. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over and tracing paths down her pale cheeks. "Mark, please," she whispered, her voice choked. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake." "Who is he?" I repeated, the question sharp, unyielding. I wouldn't be sidetracked by tears or vague admissions of error. I needed the name, needed to put a face to the shadow that had ripped my life apart. She looked down at her hands, twisting the edge of the magazine she still held. "It doesn't matter who he is." "It matters to me," I cut in, stepping closer. The floorboards creaked under my weight. 15 years, Laura, 2 children asleep upstairs, and you've been lying to me, sneaking around. Who is he?" Her shoulders slumped. She took a shuddering breath, the fight seeming to drain out of her. It's Chad," she mumbled, barely audible. "Chad from work." Chad. The name hit me harder than I expected. Chad Henderson. Younger guy. Ambitious. A bit too smooth for my liking. I'd met him a few times at company functions Laura had dragged me to. We'd shaken hands, exchanged meaningless pleasantries. He worked in her department. Had she talked about me to him? Laughed about me? The thought sent a fresh wave of bile rising in my throat. "Chad," I repeated, the name tasting like ash. "How long?" She hesitated, wiping her eyes. "A few months," she whispered. A few months, not just days, as the messages implied. Months of calculated deception. Months of looking me in the eye while carrying this secret. Months of her feeling alive with someone else. The late nights, the weekend conferences, the distant looks. It all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Why? The question was torn from me, raw with pain. Wasn't this enough? I gestured vaguely around the room, encompassing the house, the life we'd built, the ghosts of the past 15 years. She looked up then, tears streaming freely, a desperate plea in her eyes. "Mark, it wasn't about you, not really. Things have been hard, distant. We haven't connected in so long, and he paid attention. He made me feel seen." Blame, deflection, even now, my jaw tightened. "So, you decided to betray me? To lie to me? To bring another man into our life? Our marriage?" I kept my voice level, but the effort was immense. "Did you think about the kids, Laura? Did you think about what this would do to them? To us?" "Of course I did," she cried, her voice rising slightly. "Every day. I felt awful, trapped. I didn't know how to stop it, how to fix us." "Fix us?" I scoffed, a harsh sound in the quiet room. "This isn't fixing anything, Laura. This is destroying it. You made a choice. You chose to lie, day after day. You chose him over your family, over me." She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I'm so sorry, Mark. Please, I love you. I still love you. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can—" Her words trailed off as I shook my head slowly. The coldness inside me spread, extinguishing the last embers of hope. Counseling? How could we sit with a stranger and talk about rebuilding trust when the foundation itself was obliterated? When every word she spoke now felt potentially calculated, manipulative? "No," I said, the word final. "There's no fixing this." I looked at her, weeping on the sofa, the picture of remorse. But all I saw was the deception. All I felt was the crushing weight of her betrayal. The image of her laughing with him, walking into that hotel, because my gut told me the messages weren't just about late-night talks, no matter what she claimed now, was seared into my mind. I couldn't stay here. Not tonight. Not in this house that suddenly felt like a stage set for a tragedy. I turned, heading towards the hallway, towards the front door. "Mark, where are you going?" Her voice was laced with panic. "Please, don't leave!" I stopped at the doorway, my back to her. I didn't trust myself to look at her face again. "I need space, Laura. I need to think." "Think about what? About lawyers? Custody? Selling the house I designed? the house filled with memories now tainted. Think about how to tell the kids their family was breaking apart. The silence stretched again, filled only by her quiet sobs and the crackling fire. I reached for the doorknob, the cool metal a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. My hand closed around it. This was it, the point of no return. The life I knew ended right here, in this moment. My chest felt hollow, utterly empty. I twisted the knob. The latch clicked open with a sound that seemed unnaturally loud, echoing the finality of the moment. Cool night air rushed in, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant car exhaust. It felt foreign, like the air of a different world. Behind me, Laura's crying softened slightly, replaced by a sharp intake of breath, as if the reality of me walking out that door was just now hitting her with its full force. "Mark!" She started again, her voice thin, desperate. I didn't turn around, didn't answer. My gaze was fixed on the dark stretch of the driveway leading away from the house, away from the life contained within its walls. Stepping over the threshold felt like stepping off a cliff, one step, then another. The gravel crunched under my shoes. The door remained open behind me, spilling warm light onto the porch, a silent plea I couldn't answer. Where was I going? I didn't know. A hotel? A friend's place? It didn't matter. All that mattered was putting distance between myself and the ruins of my marriage. The cold air bit at my face, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere inside. Numbness. That's all I felt now, a vast echoing emptiness where my heart used to be.